Welcome in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show, Thursday edition of the program. We hope all of you are having a fantastic time wherever you may be as you get ready for the weekend. I am out in Las Vegas. I have to say it's a little bit different of an experience to wake up with young kids in a hotel room in Las Vegas. Never been out here before. The kids think Vegas is pretty awesome. They're running around. Appreciate iHeart Studios hosting me out here. And, Buck, obviously, Nevada, big-time battleground state for 2024, as it was in 2020, as it was in 2022. And this morning, I am up and I am reading, and I can't stop thinking about what exactly might happen in 2024, because we're almost to the end of January. Joe Biden is addressing Congress with his State of the Union, I believe, on February 7th, Buck. And almost as soon as that address is done, I think we start to hit the spring announcement season. And New Hampshire is in an interesting spot because New Hampshire has historically been the first primary state. But maybe because he's trying to head off a primary challenger, Joe Biden now is trying to elevate South Carolina, which is his bastion, basically, right? His reliable James Clyburn infused win. And New Hampshire is uncertain about how exactly they're going to factor in. Iowa's uncertain about how they're going to factor in. And really, it's not going to be very long till campaigning begins in earnest all over the place in some of these early states. And there are numbers out. And I wanted to hit you with some of these numbers, Buck, because, first of all, the Democrat primary. Mayor Pete in New Hampshire is beating Joe Biden. Does that surprise you at all that if there were a primary right now, Mayor Pete, who is maybe the worst transportation secretary of all time, according to this University of New Hampshire poll, Mayor Pete's at 23%. Joe Biden's at 18, tied with Elizabeth Warren. Does it surprise you that New Hampshire, our friends in the Granite State, New Hampshireites, would be liking Mayor Pete more than they do Joe Biden?
Not really. You know, look, New Hampshire is not a highly diverse electorate when it comes to the Democrats who are going to be in this primary, right, or who would be voting in a primary. So I think that this is it's always interesting. It's always instructive to go back, Clay, and look at who was ahead, just any election, who was ahead in Iowa and how did New Hampshire go? What you find out is crazy stuff happened then. Remember Howard Dean before he did his, that was actually a pretty good impersonation. And then he fell out. Yeah. He fell off. He was the Democrat frontrunner before the shriek. So you can pick any individual state.
Joe Biden came in 5th in New Hampshire. And everybody said he's basically dead. And then he went down to South Carolina, won the primary, and it was over, right? It is kind of fascinating.
Yeah, New Hampshire is not a strong state for Biden in the first place. So I'm not really surprised about that. And Mayor Pete being their choice. A lot of these early states that we've seen in the past end up being favorable toward someone who has no shot in the actual general election. Remember John Edwards? I mean, you go back, you look at some of these states. The thing that I find the most interesting right now is there is a recognition of two things that this polling, I saw the Axios piece, the Emerson College survey, Harvard Capps Harris poll that they just did, all this together. Axios just put this out this morning. And, and a Morning Consult poll. So there are a bunch of polls that are out. The Morning Consult poll has Trump expanding his lead over DeSantis 49% to 30% in a hypothetical primary field. But Biden leads Trump, according to the Morning Consult, 44%, 41%. Now, it is super early. We all know that. But one thing, and so none of this really has any predictive value, but I do think that what it shows us is the sentiment change around Trump specifically, that the whole, oh my gosh, a special counsel and maybe prosecute, all the things we've been saying about the documents are reflected in this polling, which is Trump's free and clear now. It is now open runway for the Trumpster. If Trump Force One is going to take off, he's good to go.
All right. I wanted to hit you with another one from this New Hampshire poll. Kamala Harris, what do you think she is polling right now in the New Hampshire primary, according to the University of New Hampshire poll. It has Mayor Pete in first place. Joe Biden tied with Elizabeth Warren in second place, by the way. And some of that makes sense because geography, Massachusetts, also Bernie does well. Where's Kamala?
In New Hampshire?
Yep.
Less than 3%.
Kamala is 2%.
There we go.
So now that is – so I get you in general on the hey, it's early. Some of these primary polls don't matter very much. But that is a jaw-dropping number to me, that the sitting vice president, who they are trying to tell us, Buck, hey, Kamala Harris is the future of the Democrat Party. Remember when Joe came in, the idea was, he's going to step down and elevate her and allow her to run. In New Hampshire, after 2 years, basically, of being able to advertise her competence, after 2 years of being the heir apparent, in this identity politics-laden Democrat Party where all that matters is your race and your gender, New Hampshire is giving the Heisman to Kamala Harris, 2%.
Oh, so it's important, though, to look at how the Democrats, we're sitting here talking about New Hampshire. The Democrats have changed the primary calendar for the 2024 election.
Right. They're trying to. This is actually getting complicated, Buck, because some of these states are not sure that they can get through. Like, they're trying to elevate Georgia.
Right. They proposed this, but Biden
we'll see what happens. Yes.
Biden has recommended this, but so he's gone along with it. So you have to think when the sitting president and a lot of Democrat Party insiders have all endorsed this change, you would think it could happen. So they want to have South Carolina go first with its primary on February 3rd of 2024. A couple days after that, you would have Nevada and then New Hampshire. Georgians would vote after that on February 13th. Michiganders on February 27th. So what they're going for is more diverse states in the early days, and more battleground states as well or I should say adding some battleground states into the early fighting here because, Georgia, for example, getting moved up, Michigan very early in this. So, this would be big, actually. This would be a big change because we're all so used to the Iowa, every time there's an Iowa caucuses, everyone starts Googling, like, wait, what is a caucuses again? And how?
Yeah,
and I'll tell you this, even people that work in this business, they never really figure it out. They're like, what, you hang out with a bunch of people and you vote, and then you count more votes, and then there's other the whole thing is like.
And then Iowa screwed it up the past couple of go-arounds too, Buck, where you couldn't even tell exactly who won. Remember, it couldn't figure out if Ted Cruz or Trump won back in 2016. And then in 2020, it was a total cluster, and you couldn't figure out. They couldn't get the counts right. But it is, to me, an interesting move that Joe Biden's trying to make because South Carolina is his bailiwick, his absolute strongest state because of James Clyburn. And so if there were a challenger, is he trying to box that person out?
Well, that's exactly why I think there's the hesitancy. When you have a Democrat president and top Democrat political consultants and the machine all saying, yeah, let's change this around. It also makes sense from the perspective of the narrative change the Democrats want, which is we want a more diverse electorate earlier on to help pick help pick the candidate. It obviously would also really benefit Joe Biden. What you know what I mean? It would benefit somebody in his position. So you would have to see what. Do you want a candidate who lines up the way that Biden does going forward? Or, you know what I mean? Like Pete Buttigieg in that calendar I'm talking about now, even just you're talking future elections, that would be more of a challenge for someone like a Buttigieg, to have South Carolina go first.
No, I think you're 100% right. And what's also interesting, if you think about that, is remember it was Barack Obama having great appeal in Iowa that actually propelled him to beating Hillary Clinton. So they're concerned, Iowa and New Hampshire Democrats are too white. But it was actually for a black candidate, Barack Obama, being that appealing. Now, I wanted to hit you on the Republican side. You were just saying, yeah.
Just real quick, I think it's funny because people forget this. A lesson we should always remember about Hillary Clinton, and it was hammered home twice, is that the politically inevitable winner is not actually the inevitable winner. You know what I mean? Like Hillary was supposed to win in 2008. Everybody thought she was going to at least get the party nomination, and she didn't. And then Hillary was supposed to win in 2016. New York Times, 97%. So no one could predict the future, folks.
And they actually rigged everything for her, the DNC did. But based on this calendar, Buck, by the way, there is the possibility that unlike in past years where Democrats and Republicans competed at the same time, you could have a calendar where Republicans are competing in Iowa and New Hampshire, and Democrats are starting in South Carolina, which seems complicated. But, Buck, I wanted to hit this because this is the Republican New Hampshire poll that just came out this morning. You talked about, and I agree, Trump has shown a lot of national strength. You were running through the Axios, the Morning Consult. Trump has strengthened as this classified documents dump has become a mess. There is a rig job Joe Biden's trying to put in place to get the primary season set up in his favor. Listen to this. In New Hampshire right now, Ron DeSantis up 12 points on Donald Trump. So what I would float out there, 42-30, Nikki Haley at 8%, nobody else really in the shooting match there. But what I would float out here, I have not seen a lot of discussion in the Republican camp. What is the order going to be for Republican primary season? And how much of this, I don't think Trump's going to be very strong in New Hampshire. I think that is has become a tough state for Trump. How much impact, if any, would Trump losing in New Hampshire or maybe Iowa, while he may be strong nationally, on a statewide basis, I think New Hampshire is likely to be a very strong state if DeSantis gets in the race.
I would just add to this that the sense of Trump's invincibility in a certain way, meaning that they try to, yes, I know he's not president right now, and we all know what happened in 2020, but the sense that you cannot, the machine, the apparatus cannot stop him, that he is like the Terminator, that he will just keep coming, that he has managed to, in the blink of an eye, Trump went from everybody we know, every legal analyst that you and I know and trust, before they found the classified document. I had two former attorney generals tell me, Republican attorney generals tell me in private, I think they're actually going to charge Trump. Yep. Okay. So Andy McCarthy said just the other day on the show, I thought they were going to charge Trump until the documents thing happened. The fact that I mean, he went through Russia collusion. Think about all this: the special counsel, the tax, nonsense, and all these investigations, and all this stuff. And with like a swipe of his hand, of his paw, like a big bear, Trump has just knocked aside yet again another massive Democrat trap to try to stop him from running. I mean, I think it's really just dawning on the folks in Mar-a-Lago and in Trump's orbit that it's, the field's wide open now for him. I mean, all the obstacles, all the pitfalls they put in place, at least with regard to the legal stuff, gone.
Yeah, I would just point out, instead of Trump knocking it aside with his big paw, I think Joe Biden kind of stepped in the bear trap himself.
That is a more accurate description of what happened here. But
Joe Biden's incompetence has freed Trump. It's like the Democrats had set a big trap, and they were all ready to get Trump in the cage, and then Biden just stepped right in the trap and got caught himself.
You know this from sports. I know this from life. Better lucky than good, Clay, every time. Better lucky than good. And fortune was shining on Trump when Biden took home classified many times and, left it around. He was practically leaving it like a magazine subscription that he had. He could care less, it seems, about the classified rules. But we'll get back into more of that here in just a second. There was a big deal made last weekend on the 50th anniversary of the Roe v. Wade decision. Lots of rallies, speeches, plenty of celebration over the notion of being able to abort a baby. Notice there wasn't as much attention paid for the March for Life in the media, of course. But don't be discouraged by the quiet on that front. There's plenty of effort going on every day, particularly from the preborn pregnancy clinics. Every day, the preborn pregnancy clinics, it's a nonprofit nationwide, provide free ultrasounds to moms who are making the biggest decision of their lives. That ultrasound introduces the mother to their unborn child. They hear the heartbeat. They see the movement. They may learn the sex of that child. It's a game changer, the ultrasound, so often for that mother who's making that decision, and she so often brings the child into this world because of that free ultrasound. Now, that's something to really celebrate, and it's something you can take part in. You can help. Please support the preborn pregnancy clinics with a donation. It costs $28 for a single ultrasound. 5 ultrasounds cost $140. Whatever you can contribute, though, will go to saving the lives of unborn children. Each day, 150 babies are saved in this manner. Using your cell phone, dial pound 250 and say the word baby. That's pound 250 on your cell phone. Say baby. There's also a website where you can donate. Go to preborn.com/buck. That's preborn.com/BUCK. Sponsored by Preborn. You know, we told you yesterday about how Kevin McCarthy has come out swinging on a variety of fronts, and one of them is that he has removed some very nasty, very partisan, and dishonest Democrats like Adam Schiff and Swalwell. You know that I did a hit on Tucker's show when we're talking about Swalwell, and the lower third, you know, the chyron at the bottom of the screen was the spy who shagged me. That was actually they actually did that on Fox. It was pretty funny. Anyway,
some of the producers are getting pretty witty in terms of the. I've noticed that
I love
of late on
the
Fox
witty
News.
chyrons are great. Like, I love it when they light that up. But anyway, so Schiff has hurt feelings. He's upset because he's no longer in the Intelligence Committee, which means he doesn't have the same kind of access he did, and also can't pretend to have the same super secret information about Trump. So he went on to TikTok. His first TikTok video is about getting removed from the House Intelligence Committee. Play 10.
Hello, I'm Congressman Adam Schiff with some troubling news. Today, Kevin McCarthy removed me from the House Intelligence Committee, all for doing my job, for holding Trump accountable and standing up to the extreme MAGA Republicans. We knew it would be bad when the Republicans took over, but it's far worse than we expected. But I can promise you this is not the end of my fight for our democracy. This is just the beginning. Please join us and contribute today. Thank you.
Oh, give me money, he says at the end. First of all, he should have. I expect some tears from Adam Schiff on this one. You know, some sad tears. Second of all, yes, Clay, I think he certainly has activated the TikTok armies of youth influencers who show you the perfect way to put on your eyeshadow and how to do particularly catchy dance moves to techno music.
Also, the guy who's complaining about not being on the Intelligence Committee by going straight to a Chinese-owned app to complain while simultaneously, how many people do you think raise money through TikTok? It feels like one of the least efficient ways imaginable to try to raise money. And Adam Schiff is running for the Senate. They've already kind of kicked Dianne Feinstein to the curb there. So he and Katie Porter, who knows how many other people end up running before all is said and done. Got to tell you, let me save you some money. Pure Talk can make a big difference for you. How about saving money on your cell phone right now with a U.S.-based veteran who owns this company and a U.S.-based customer service team? Same exact service, same network, and man, I will tell you, you will save a bundle. Blazing fast data, talk and text, just $30 a month, probably half of what you're paying Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. You can keep your phone, keep your same phone number, and you can switch in as little as 10 minutes. Plus, they have a first-month risk-free guarantee. Try it. If you're not completely happy, you'll get your money back. Here's how you do it. Dial pound 250, say Clay and Buck. You'll save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, dial pound 250, say Clay and Buck. Pure Talk is simply smarter wireless. Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. In case you didn't hear, after the show ended yesterday, news broke that Facebook and Instagram were going to be allowing Donald Trump back on their platforms. Now, Buck, one of my first thoughts was this is why Elon Musk buying Twitter mattered so much, because I genuinely question whether Facebook and Instagram would have done this if Twitter had not done it first and taken all of the heat by and large for making this choice. Now, Trump still has to decide, and we'll talk about that in a moment, whether he should or should not get back on Facebook and Instagram. I believe over 50 million people follow him combined on those two places. But, of course, the usual suspects, Morning Joe, which features Joe Scarborough, who needs his 746th straight COVID booster shot in order to avoid getting COVID seriously. Well, his wife said, there's no accountability. This is just about money. It's always funny when you're appearing on a show which is also about money, and you complain about somebody else doing something that's also about money. But here's Mika Brzezinski.
I don't see any sign the risk has gone down. In fact, some of his posts on Truth Social are disgusting, racist. There's no change. So this is just about money. And also the fact that there's no accountability.
Okay, a few things here. First of all, I think I can pretty much tell that anyone who tells me that they really like watching Mika Brzezinski on TV, I don't think we're going to be friends. I'm just going to say that. I'll just be honest. Like, I don't think we're going to get along. People can choose what they like, but she is honestly the sanctimony and just the dripping with arrogance that she does on a daily basis is I don't get it. I don't understand it. Anyway, Clay, you can't have the biggest Facebook, I think is still the biggest social media platform by users. You could argue Google with search plus YouTube and, all together maybe is more influential in some ways, but Facebook for pure social media company is the biggest. And here we are with people still suggesting that you could have a Republican nominee who wouldn't even have access to that platform. Now, I know they're going to say it's private, but then we have to look at all the FCC regulations that exist right now on radio and what you can say and radio licenses. Look at broadcast cable and broadcast TV and cable, and there are all kinds of rules. And they look at mergers. They look at whether there's a free market, the notion that you're going to have Facebook block a presidential candidate and former president because you don't like something that he said is completely insane. But Mika Brzezinski still thinks that would be accountability. She's crazy.
Yeah, she wants censorship, which is indefensible, Buck. But also, I don't even buy the idea that Facebook's business is implicated very significantly based on whether Trump is on or not. And the same thing for Instagram. I think any individual who's on there doesn't really move the needle, no matter how powerful they are, in a substantial way that could create something. And that's our good buddy Adam Schiff. I feel like putting him on twice here. Maybe we don't do that. We've got an audio clip of him also saying, this is all about money. Here's the question I have, Buck. Does Trump benefit? It's the same question we had when Trump was allowed back on to Twitter in November, and he still hasn't tweeted. I'm still torn. Now, Facebook, I think, has been big, according to reports, in terms of his ability to make money. So I think probably running Trump's Facebook and Instagram accounts with the idea being, hey, this could be generic. We're just kind of posting things. Whereas Twitter felt very organic. Hey, this is Trump with the phone in his hand actually sending out messages. And I think that was one of the reasons he had 85 million followers or whatever the heck the number was. But does he benefit? Does it matter for him whether he's back on social? I think it matters in terms of the precedent being set that you can't ban people and shouldn't ban people who are running for elective office. My position on this, Buck, is just we should want as much information as possible, good or bad, from our candidates. Censoring them doesn't help us make decisions on elections.
Here's the problem, though. We now have seen, as you and I have said all along, from Twitter and what has been unveiled, what has been shared with the public by Elon Musk, that is going on at all of these social media companies. All of them. We're doing the same stuff that was happening at Twitter. Same things going on at Facebook and YouTube. And I've been demonetized and shut down and suspended by some of these other things. And, you and I are respectable fellows. But you, when you were running Outkick, said that sometimes you get throttled on Facebook.
All the time.
They play games all the time. And part of the issue here is even if Trump comes back on, now we know that these are effectively unbalanced or unfair playing fields. And how do you get, now we hope that Twitter, which feels like it's had some bugs recently for those who are using it, but I know a lot of you don't care. But pretty much, I could tell you this, when I was at the Blaze, we did some audience, people would do some polls of the audience and things like that. And so the conservative audience, this was about 10 years ago, 80 or 85% of our conservative readers and audience back in the day were on Facebook. Less than 5% were on Twitter. But 85% are on Facebook, meaning everybody listening to this, you may not be active on Facebook, but you have a Facebook account. Some of you are probably very active on it. There's Trump being back on, and this is my fundamental point with this. And then there's what do we do about the fact that Facebook, with very minor behind-the-scenes algorithm shifts and games that can be played for our safety, but really it's just, libs getting their way, can change the course of an election when you look at how many votes are really being tallied in the final, in the final hours that make the difference.
Yeah, and for people out there who haven't heard me talk about this, I actually testified in front of the House Judiciary Subcommittee on Big Tech back in 2021, I believe March of 2021. And by the way, Buck, you remember we talked about whether there was a single picture of us wearing a mask? The only picture that I am aware of that is out there of me wearing a mask, this is going to go down in infamy of how stupid this was. You couldn't testify in front of Congress in the spring and winter of 2021 unless you wore a mask. I mean, that is how crazy it was. So I testified in front of that subcommittee having to wear a mask during the testimony, which is so stupid, right? I mean, but there are pictures of me trying to sit there with a big oversized mask and speak in front of Congress because Democrats were in control and they mandated that everyone who was in that room had to wear a mask. But one reason I felt comfortable ultimately making the decision to sell to Fox was because of the power of big tech algorithms. When you're trying to run a business, and I've seen this running a media business, you can go from absolutely dominating, you feel like you are on a roll, and then those algorithms determine they don't like what you're posting. And I saw it happen directly when we had Donald Trump on the very first time on my radio show, sports talk radio show at the time, and Outkick wrote all about it. Our traffic dropped 80% from Facebook overnight because we were writing positive stories about Trump. That cost real money. That's money directly out of my pocket.
Didn't we do a Trump interview and our YouTube for election information got demonetized for a period or something? I'd have to go back and check.
They wouldn't allow our interview that we did at Bedminster. YouTube gave us a strike and refused to allow us to share our interview with Trump like they had done for Rand Paul as well. And that's my argument. Regardless of your politics, you should want as much public discussion from your political candidates as possible so you can go watch the interview and be like, I like this guy. I don't like this guy. I'm going to donate to him. I'm going to donate to his opponent. They're actually rigging the election and also making people less informed at big tech, and it's infuriating that that's even possible. And, Buck, from our perspective, we're actually interviewing someone. You are not allowing us to be heard because of the answers that someone who we interview gives. I mean, that's next level censorship. That's not even just censoring Trump. It's censoring our ability on the biggest radio show in the country to actually talk to Trump and share that interview with everybody out there who might not have heard it live.
It's going to be a big battle here to see how, because I know, again, people that work in media, because it's part of our day-to-day existence, think about social media a lot more in these ways than everyday folks. And that makes sense. These social media companies can deliver the election to candidates if they want to. We just need to understand that. That is the amount of power that they wield. When you just look at the fundraising capabilities that you can have and the amplifying effect on social media, it's just not something we can ignore. So Trump getting back on Facebook, which already there are libs, obviously Mika and others, complaining about, that's step one. But we have to find a way to get there to be some transparency in this. At some point, we got to ask, is Facebook just giving in-kind donations to Democrat candidates and getting away with it? Right? I mean, is that what's going on? Because we got a Republican majority Congress. I don't know. Maybe they should look into this a little bit. Maybe they should take a peek. You know what else you should look into? What are you going to do with your money? Rising inflation, volatile stock market out there. Your retirement accounts have gotten hit badly in the last year or so. There's a lot of economic uncertainty around. You know what the Phoenix Capital Group suggests for you? Phoenix Capital Group wants you to diversify your investments. They want to introduce investors like you to high-value oil and gas here in the U.S. with current yields ranging from 8% to 11% APY paid monthly. These are corporate bond offerings, and they're open to all investors with annual interest paid monthly. Phoenix Capital Group offers live webinars to learn about Phoenix's business structure, ways they offer security for the offerings, risks, and their financials. They host live Q&As where they'll answer all your questions. Sign up at investingwithphx.com or call 323-PHOENIX. Investment in bonds has a certain risk. Before making investment decisions, you should carefully consider and review all risks involved. Again, sign up today at investingwithphx.com. That's investingwithphx.com or call 323-PHOENIX. That's 323-PHOENIX to connect. Welcome back to Clay and Buck, 800-282-2882 on the phone lines. Don't forget to subscribe to clayandbuck.com. Become a VIP. Send us emails. If I ever use the past pluperfect improperly on the show, if you want to correct my grammar, that VIP email, Clay, comes right in like a bomb dropping from above, and we see it right away. And people say, you know, how dare you get the leave a dangling participle like that? Anyway, we have some grammarians. Is that even the proper term? We have some grammarians in this audience. I think it probably is. I'm just putting it out there.
The amount of grammar emails, I've never seen anything like it. And more power to you for being.
I just thought it was awesome too that when you used to say the state Nevada incorrectly, people blamed me, and I want to be like, am I Clay's keeper? Like, I don't understand. Like, why is this on me? They're like, you need to tell him.
I'm in Nevada right now, and hopefully I'm pronouncing the state right. But I will tell you this, Buck. Speaking of, I think I mentioned this to you yesterday. I got a listener who sent a mixtape for you for your wedding. And I guess mixtape is not necessarily, those of you out there who remember back in the day. Well, it's a CD, but I don't even know that I have the ability. Can you do a mix CD? Like, I think you still call it a mixtape even if it's a CD.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the thing. In my generation, Clay, we had CDs in college.
Songs for you. For your wedding, so that was I got to admit, when I opened my mail.
Do we know what the songs are? Like, were they written out? I'm just sort of curious. Is "Endless Love" on there? I mean, are we? Is there some Meatloaf? Like, what are we talking about here?
It's at my house in Nashville right now, and every now and then I get mail at my house. I don't know how people are finding my address, and most of the time it's nice, although. Sometimes we get negative things sent to the house, and
I do think it's funny.
This is a first.
That if you do something though and it bothers somebody, sometimes they come to me to tell you that they're bothered. I'm like, what is this?
I got a letter the other day, Buck. All it was a big blown up piece of mail, and when I opened it, it just said "loser." That's all that was in it. I opened up I swear to God, in my house, opened up the mail. It's addressed to me. There's a letter in there. I unfold it, big letters. It just said "loser," like printed off of like a laser printer back in 1984. So I was like, well, but now I've got a CD of songs for you that I'll have to get to you for the wedding playlist. I don't know what Carrie's going to think. Maybe you can take it on the honeymoon, toss it in the CD player.
Sometimes people are really mean, but they're mean and it's kind of funny, and so then it's okay. I will always remember being told that I looked like Mrs. Doubtfire, but uglier. Which was like that
strangely
burns, but
very specific, but strangely very specific too.
Yeah. So I remember that.
That's also a little bit of an old school thing. I don't even know if they could still make Mrs. Doubtfire.
I wonder when she's
going to
when
get canceled.
When Mrs. Doubtfire, the character, is going to come up against being canceled. As you know, the show, wildly popular show Friends, started to get in a lot of trouble for LGBTQ jokes and fat jokes and different things. Like Friends, after the fact, people went after. I've never really heard Seinfeld get in trouble for anything. Maybe I'm just missing something, but in retrospect, they haven't really gone after Seinfeld. But Friends definitely also for not being diverse enough. The cast is not diverse. So people go after it for that. Look, people just want good content. So we'll start with that. And I know we talked about the movies. By the way,
couldn't make a show. I don't think 6 white people anymore. I don't think you could do it anymore, Buck. It would be so unacceptable.
Yeah, they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't put money behind it. They would be terrified of being called, racist or whatever. By the way, coming up, I want to spend a little bit of time on a couple of things that all tie together. One is the border, as we know, yes, wide open, the worst border crisis in living memory in this country. And it's fascinating to see how the conversation has shifted here, even among Democrats, because they can't afford this in cities like New York. And that's coming from the Democrat mayor of New York, Eric Adams. But also, we started out today talking about the polling in New Hampshire. And the truth is, I think Eric Adams is looking at the next big job. I think he's thinking about running for president. And I know, look, is Biden going to just be the guy? I believe that's probably the case. But Biden would only have, 4 more years. So people are already starting to look to build out national level brands. I think it's very interesting to see some of the maneuvering. And also right now, I think, Clay, that Democrats are paying more attention to possible Biden challengers because it's not official yet, right? So you can you can get a little attention for yourself. You can get that national level conversation going if you're Gavin Newsom, Eric Adams, Pete Buttigieg, although he's in the administration in some capacity. So let's talk about that when we come back. And then also maybe if you want to talk Russia-Ukraine, it's getting pretty scary over there.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like it's going to be changing anytime soon. But I think your point, I think you were the first person to say it that I heard. Hey, Eric Adams clearly laying the groundwork to challenge Biden regardless in 2024. We'll talk about it.
Second hour of Clay and Buck gets going right now, everybody. Thanks for being with us. Going to take our attention over to NYC. Say hi to all of our WOR family in the greater New York area and take a look at what's happening in America's largest city here for a second. Yesterday we talked about California, which is obviously a state, not a city, but California as a state is running a $26 billion deficit right now, which, I don't know, it seems like a lot of money to me for a state to be $26 billion in the hole. New York City alone is facing a deficit this coming year of about $4 billion. Just the city, $4 billion, according to the comptroller. So it turns out people leaving a place, and especially those who tends to be the most mobile, most easily mobile, those with disposable income and those who are high earners, right? Those are people that can say, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to go somewhere else. This has been a major challenge for both New York and California. And I don't see it turning around anytime soon. And perhaps you could say California as a state is suffering from this more. New York as a city, I think, is suffering from this more. People aren't saying I've had enough of Saratoga or Buffalo or the Hudson Valley, but they are saying New York City, because there's an additional, I think it's an additional 3%, Clay, you pay to be in New York City. I got to go back and check. That people are saying enough is enough, right? So who is supposed to fix all of this? Eric Adams. He comes in as the mayor, and his first job is supposed to be dealing with crime. Year over year, crime down a little bit, but it hasn't been some miracle turnaround story. And as we've described here on the show, there's a rot within the actual system now because of decisions made by the de Blasio administration. A lot of people in the district attorney's office, a lot of the regulations, rules, and approach that the NYPD has to deal with. All these things mean that, and just also the culture of allowing criminality, that has made things worse. It has not really improved the way that we would have hoped even a year in. Okay. But the bigger challenge that Eric Adams, I think, didn't see coming was this migrant flow. And here he is. Now, remember, the lib media, they're not going to challenge Eric Adams in any aggressive way for a number of reasons. I think they're increasingly warming up to him on a national level. Democrats are thinking of him more as a national figure. Mayor of New York is often thought of as the only mayor. Well, if you're the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, Clay, you're obviously ready for cabinet, right? I mean, if you're
ready for president. If you can run South Bend, you're ready to be the president of the United States, man.
I mean, no offense to South Bend. I'm sure it's a lovely town, Notre Dame and all that. But, I don't think it's necessarily the job you have before you're in the White House. Mayor of New York City, obviously different category. But this migrant issue for New York has really created a dissonance, a friction in the Democrat narrative, because, as we all know, there is this belief that the more the merrier when it comes to illegal migrants. New York has always been Statue of Liberty, legal migrants coming in. By the way, people forget there were migrants who were turned away at Ellis Island. Not everybody, even people who were trying to come through the legal process, were sometimes for reasons of health, or if there was issue with the documents, whatever. And also, in the big waves of migration in this country, there were pretty considerable percentages of the population who actually went back home to Italy or to Ireland or whatever the case may be, because there was no welfare state here. So you either made it or you didn't. And if you spend any time, have you ever been to the Tenement Museum, Clay? It's on the Lower East Side of Manhattan.
No, I've been to Ellis Island, which is a cool opportunity to go through. But no, I've never been to the Tenement Museum.
Tenement Museum, a little more bleak than, Ellis Island.
Yes, I would imagine.
Come here, we love you. All the that for immigrants, America, shining city on a hill. The Tenement Museum this is what it was like in the early 1900s, being in America's largest city. And I mean, you had 8 people to a room. You had basically no light. You had very unsanitary conditions. You would have cholera outbreaks that would kill thousands, and they would stack them. They would stack bodies outside these very cramped quarters housing. That still, this museum is obviously one of these old tenement buildings. They would stack the bodies out when there were cholera or typhus outbreaks. So it was rough. It was not a good.
Didn't you say that you had never been to the Statue of Liberty?
I cannot tell a lie. I haven't been to the Statue of Liberty. That is the truth.
That is still. I'm just thinking about it because of the Ellis Island discussion. You've been to the Tenement Museum, but you haven't been to the Statue of Liberty. That is probably not an overlap that happens.
I see it. It's amazing. It's majestic. I've seen it. I don't know. I got to go. I probably should go. But I've also seen the Will Smith movie where he takes a date to Ellis Island. You remember that? Hitch? You see this?
Oh, I did see that movie.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've seen Ghostbusters when, spoiler alert, got to be careful out there. Never know when people haven't seen it. When the Statue of liberty actually comes walking through town, right?
That's Ghostbusters 2 with the pink slide.
Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah.
That's right. Which is a very underrated film, the Ghostbusters 2. Everybody likes Ghostbusters 1. Ghostbusters 2 is also good.
That painting was really scary with Vigo. Some of you will remember.
Yes.
Yeah. It was a scary painting. Scary paintings can mess you up. I'll tell you, my grandparents had a frowny clown. I'm not kidding. A frowning clown painting that was terrifying. Terrifying.
Why did they have a frowning clown painting in who bought it?
It was like it came through family. It was the great-grandparents or the great-great-grandparents, but don't worry, we gave that one away at auction.
We're buying artwork. Laura's got a little bit of, I would say, a morose opinion of what art should be. And we were standing in front of a painting recently. I don't want to see that on the wall. Where you walk in, you're like, life is miserable. Why even go on? I want some bright colors, some happiness, vibrancy. A frowning clown from the early 1900s. That's really pretty creepy.
Yeah, I was always waiting for its little hand to just pop out of the painting with a knife. Anyway, it was scary looking. So back to at the Tenement Museum, immigrants, very different situation than what we have. And remember that was coming through the legal process. Now we're talking about illegal immigrants. And here's what Eric Adams says about not just New York City, but all the big Democrat-controlled cities. Play clip 1.
I believe that when I took the trip to El Paso, you could see firsthand the impact of how it not only harmed the foundation of El Paso, but look at Chicago, Houston, Washington, New York City. This is just unfair for cities to carry the weight of a national problem. We're going to open 4 more hotels, emergency hotels. We had to open HERCs. This is a major financial impact on New York City and cities across this country that are receiving the brunt of it.
So I want everyone to really listen to what he's saying there, because, Clay, this is important. The story from Democrats for, honestly, my entire adult life, certainly through all the Obama administration and all the years of Trump and kids in cages and all the stuff they talked about, was illegal immigrants. They just show up. and do all the work that we won't do, and they add to the economy, and there's no downside at all, just economically, never mind any social cohesion, assimilation issues. There's no economic downside to it. So shut up, stop being a bigot, and the more illegal immigrants, the better. That was the storyline. Well, now we've had I'm estimating 2.5 million with the gotaways. It's over 2 million. I think 2.5 is a pretty good guess for Biden's time in office. Mayor of New York is saying we can't afford this. Hundreds of millions of dollars somehow going toward dealing with these migrants. Why do you need hundreds of millions of dollars going toward? More money is going toward illegal immigrants in New York City than housing insecure, meaning homeless, New Yorkers.
I think you hit on something. And the more I think about it, the more brilliant I think it is. I always think you have to step out of your own mind and pretend that you are Eric Adams or his advisors. That trip to El Paso was a clear sign and a shot across the bow, these statements that he is making now, that I think he's going to challenge Joe Biden. And if you are Eric Adams, you are not the favored, fair-haired child of the Democrat Party where they're like, hey, just wait till 2028. You're not Gavin Newsom. You aren't Kamala Harris. You aren't Mayor Pete. You are outside of the cool kid club. The DNC ain't rigging anything for you. And, Buck, what did we talk about in the first hour? That Biden is attempting to reconfigure the organization, the order of the Democrat primaries. Imagine this. What if Eric Adams were the only person to challenge Joe Biden? And they are constantly campaigning in South Carolina, which is a majority black electorate. How do you think he might do? Because I think he connects in his 50s. He sounds and thinks, I think, like a lot of South Carolina black Democrat voters would sound and think like. We know Joe Biden has no political antenna anymore. James Clyburn obviously is a black, very powerful politician in South Carolina who basically said, Joe Biden's my guy. But who do you think would connect better on the campaign trail in South Carolina as at the opening primary if it's Eric Adams and Joe Biden on a stage competing against each other? And Eric Adams can actually speak, I think, in a way that would connect better with those South Carolina voters than Joe Biden could. And I wonder whether in trying to rig the game for himself, the Biden people have not really thought about Eric Adams as a legitimate someone who could start to get a little bit of sizzle down there in South Carolina.
Right. So you have the illegal immigration angle of this, which I think the Democrats realize the more people figure out what's going on here, and that if 40,000 migrants is putting a massive financial strain on New York City, what are 2.5 million illegal migrants doing across the U.S. then? Mostly going to New York, Los Angeles, maybe Chicago. I mean, you look at the major cities, Houston. What is that doing to their budgets? That's one big piece of this story. So, I mean, I basically think Eric Adams is becoming a national political figure, certainly in terms of the conversation. That's why the trip to the border was so meaningful. And then to your point about the changing of, assuming they actually do change the Democrat primary, how does it look for Joe Biden if you have Eric Adams decide that he is going to run against him? You had Kennedy come pretty close to Carter back in 1980. Ford ran against, right? They're talking about incumbent presidents who had to face a challenge. So you had Carter and Kennedy. That was pretty tight. Ford and Reagan in 76. That was pretty tight. No one's ever done it in modern times, but it's doable.
92, you had George Bush getting challenged by Pat Buchanan, and Buchanan actually rattled his cage a little bit, if you remember back in the day.
No one's won in the modern era against the incumbent president, is what I mean. No one's done that. Obviously, Carter, Kennedy, Ford, Reagan, and as you said, Buchanan. Yeah, that's right. Buchanan, and it's interesting. I feel like with the passage of time, the respect that Pat Buchanan has among the conservative intelligentsia only grows. That's my perception of it.
He hit on with every a lot of very Trumpian issues.
Yeah. He was a smart guy. You know, he was an MSNBC analyst for a long time.
Well, they used to actually pretend that they were going to cover the real news as opposed to becoming a propaganda network. And when we come back, I mean, just think about that. I want everybody out there. Joe Biden on the stage against Eric Adams in that South Carolina primary in the debating, assuming that he was willing to debate, I think Eric Adams could fillet him because I think Biden's going to be a disaster at 82 years old debating against anybody. But 30 years younger, black, who's going to connect better with that electorate? It would actually be a really interesting, significant, I think, challenge to Biden's campaign. Maybe even more so than if they started in Iowa and New Hampshire. Just worth thinking about what the implications might be there. In the meantime, IRS, do you know they're benefiting small business owners with a refund of your taxes? If your business has 5 or more employees and you made it through COVID, you could be eligible to receive a payroll tax rebate of up to $26,000 per employee. Not a loan, no payback, just a refund of your taxes. How do you get your business this refund money? It's simple. Go to getrefunds.com. Their tax attorneys are specialists in a little-known payroll tax refund program. They do all the work, no charges up front, just share a percentage of the cash they get back with you. Businesses of all types can qualify, including those who took PPP, nonprofits, even those that had increases in sales. Do you know the team at getrefunds.com has already returned over $1 billion to businesses? They can help you as well. Just go to getrefunds.com. Click on Qualify Me, answer a few questions. Payroll tax refund only available for a limited amount of time. Don't miss out. GetRefunds.com. No risk, high reward. GetRefunds.com. Welcome back in. Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us. We are rolling through Thursday edition of the program out here in Las Vegas. Buck still down in Miami, where I'm sure the weather is absolutely fabulous as always. Breaking news story that's out there from CNN. The National Archives has asked former presidents and vice presidents to check and see if they have classified and presidential documents. Here's the opening paragraph of that story. National Archives formally asking presidents and vice presidents to recheck their personal records for any classified docs or other presidential records. And they have sent a letter to all of the last 6 presidential administrations. I feel like it's almost a certainty, Buck, based on what we've seen from Trump, Biden, and certainly Vice President Pence, that Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, come on, George W. Bush, I would be very surprised if every one of these presidents, based on what's going on right now, doesn't have in their possession something improper, classified, presidential or vice presidential in nature.
Can we just also say for a moment, Clay, that the whole, but what Biden did versus what Trump did that we initially heard, the Trump things were when he was president and when he left. Look, if you find that Barack Obama took things that went to the Obama Presidential Library and there's some dispute, that's an affirmative decision that is made by a president to take documents that they actually had full control of, including declassification authority. It's a different category of thing. Joe Biden as a senator and a vice president just leaving stuff around his homes. This would be like if, and it's not even as bad because Trump was president and Biden at the time of these document issues was not. But this would be like, imagine if you were just finding classified like under the golf carts at Mar-a-Lago, hey, there it is, next to the Corvette. And this makes you realize, I think, for Biden, this was a habit. This wasn't a thing that happened one time at the end of time in office. He would just take classified out of SCIFs, go read it wherever he wanted, and perhaps even worse than just read it, maybe even gave it to, for example, Hunter Biden. But yeah, I think that if they really did a scrub, a lot of these, Hillary Clinton, she was really careful with classified, I'm sure. Go to one of her beach houses and see what turns up.
Well, I think it just continues to point out how quickly this entire story has collapsed all around Trump. And if Obama comes out to have classified documents, you think this story is lasting at all? And Trump said he did. I think he probably did. I think every president and vice president, it feels like, did at this point.
My friends, online identity is something you got to take very seriously. And if you've ever been the victim of someone stealing your identity online and buying things while pretending to be you know exactly what I'm talking about. Cyber hackers are really good at breaking into company databases and stealing account information. That's what they do. Cyber thieves then buy that stolen data on something called the dark web and make those purchases or open up accounts in your name. Either way, turns out badly for you. You need protection from this. Online identity theft protection. One company does it better than all the others, LifeLock. Their systems are so advanced they can monitor billions of transactions and see patterns to help protect you online. Now, look, no one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses, but it's easy to help protect yourself with LifeLock. I have had LifeLock for years. I've had to use them, and they protect me every day. Join now. Save up to 25% off your first year with promo code BUCK. Call 1-800-LifeLock or head to LifeLock.com. Use my name, Buck, as a promo code for 25% off. That's LifeLock.com, promo code BUCK. Welcome back to Clay and Buck. You would think that when it comes to a federal judge, knowledge of the Constitution would be an important. Okay, we're going to hold off on this for a second until we get the cut, Clay, because we have to hear the audio of it. But I'll tee up the story here for a second of what happened with Senator Kennedy at a judiciary hearing, Senate judiciary hearing. A Biden judicial nominee this is the main story up on Fox right now. Their headlining story. Unable to answer very basic questions about the United States Constitution. Now, I won't say what the questions are because we're at a point now where I want everyone to hear it. We said we're going to hear it. But I will say this. The general competency of the bureaucracy is something that I think more and more Americans are doubting with really good reason. The federal bureaucrats increasingly show themselves to be highly partisan and highly incompetent. And this has been true with the CDC and Fauci. And I know Fauci's, it's always so interesting, isn't it? Fauci's kind of speaks for the CDC, or at least he did before he retired, but he's really at NIAID, which he ran, which is a subheading of the NIH, right, which is the National Institute of he was at National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, and then there's National Institutes of Health, NIH, which he was. Point being, a total disaster. The FBI, how many times we come in here and had to talk about the mess that the FBI has made of elections and of our politics, and I think increasingly what we have is a situation where people should start to doubt the competency of the bureaucracy. And that actually has really negative ramifications for the country going forward. When federal agencies that have a specific mandate can't be trusted to be apolitical and can't be trusted to be capable, why should we have them effectively operating as the fourth branch of government and governing so much of our lives?
Yeah, and when we play this audio, and I haven't even heard the audio, we were talking about it off air. So I've been an attorney now for 18 years. I passed the bar when I was 25 years old, U.S. Virgin Islands and the state of Tennessee. So I'm licensed in two different places. I took two different bar exams back-to-back years. And I'm sure there are a lot of attorneys out there listening right now who are going to nod their heads along here. I would totally fail the bar exam if I took it right now, because you have to memorize so many details that I have not applied for almost two decades now. So a lot of nuances, a lot of technicalities. But if I were suddenly, and they would never nominate me and I wouldn't want to do it, but if I were suddenly nominated to be a federal district court judge, Buck, I would for months absolutely surround myself with every aspect of the law and the job that a judge would undertake, so that when I was testifying in front of Congress, I was the best prepared that I could possibly be, because I wouldn't want to be humiliated by getting asked a question that I hadn't prepared myself for. To kind of contextualize this for everybody out there about what we're going to hear here momentarily.
So here, just by way of a little bit of backstory, back in 2019, the Spokesman Review out in Spokane, Washington, had this headline: Governor Inslee appoints first female African-American judge in Eastern Washington to Spokane County Superior Court. So this judge, Belkengren, Judge Charnel Belkengren, was the first African-American female judge appointed to the Spokane County Superior Court. The Biden administration has now decided that she should be in the Eastern District federal court of Washington. And here is just a clip that is now going viral of what happened when a Senate Judiciary hearing with Senator Kennedy here. What happens when he asks a question? Well, I'll let you listen to the questions. Play.
Tell me what Article 5 of the Constitution does.
Article 5 is not coming to mind at the moment.
Okay. How about Article 2?
Neither is Article 2.
Okay. Do you know what purposivism is?
In my 12 years as an assistant attorney general and my 9 years serving as a judge, I was not faced with that precise question. We are the highest trial court in Washington state, so I'm frequently faced with issues that I'm not familiar with, and I thoroughly review the law, research, and apply the law to the facts presented to me.
Well, you're going to be faced with it if you're confirmed. I can assure you of that.
Can I just say, Clay, so people are obviously pointing out, they're saying, so there's been a lot of celebration about the elevation of this judge because this judge represents diversity to the left, and they think we need more diversity, particularly on the court. Got to have diversity all the time. If you're a federal judge, you have to know what Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution does. I actually think you have to know what is in the Constitution if your job is to look at the law, which is set forth, the foundation of it, by the Constitution. I think that's acceptable.
It's a form of questioning that is akin to what would happen on a bar exam, which is why I was using the bar exam as an example. A lot of lawyers are not experts in every aspect of the law. But if you are going to testify in front of Congress, you should have prepared for months for every possible question you could be asked. And the fact that you have to say, like, I'm not prepared, like, I haven't looked that up, like, you should never have a question that you are unprepared for in front of the Congress.
So the third question, I would say that would be, because no one would know what that is who's not working the law, to be fair, right? But, I mean, Clay, if someone asked a federal judge, what do you think about the Second Amendment? Or someone soon to be a federal judge. This is that level. And they said, I don't know what the Second Amendment is. So I think when you're talking about, like, you need to prepare for the bar exam, Clay, she doesn't know it's in Article 2 of the Constitution.
Yeah, right. But what I'm saying is, even the fact that she doesn't know it when she is going to testify in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee about deserving this job is indefensible, because you should, before you go on, like, when you are nominated for the Supreme Court, Buck, they will spend weeks, months grilling you. They give you tons of documents to read so that you are prepared for that filleting, for lack of a better way, because they're trying to catch you. They're going to go over everything you've ever written before. This is very basic stuff. The fact that she is unprepared means that she didn't do the most rudimentary level of homework to prepare for this hearing, which is, to me, indefensible, because you're basically auditioning for a job.
Right, but I mean, you also, I would think that if you're going to be a judge, period, you shouldn't have to really just brush up on what the basics are of the Constitution, right? So,
I get it. But I'm saying, even if you are not expected to get asked about this, right, you should have prepared to such an extent that you can handle any question they answer and absolutely knock it out of the park. I am, in addition to the fact that she may not have this working knowledge, I'm troubled that she didn't do the basic amount of homework to even be able to have that conversation. It's like going in for a job interview.
I'm troubled. I want to know how much homework she has ever done with regard to the law, history,
that's
America.
A very fair question. Yeah. But have you ever done? You've probably done. I've interviewed people before for jobs as a business owner, and they have not done the most basic level of research on what we do, what their job opportunity would be, and I just immediately X them out, right? Like, if you weren't willing to spend a little bit of time researching me or the company that you are interviewing for, then why in the world would I hire you and expect that you're going to work hard and be a good employee once you're actually here? This is like a failed job interview to me. Like, you should just get a big X across your application.
She's going to get confirmed. She's going to get confirmed,
Probably.
By the way. Of course, because she's obviously such a constitutional scholar, she will be confirmed to the federal court. Good stuff.
because we have reached a world where your actual knowledge and your actual skill does not matter. What matters is whether you have the right identity politically, and that is why I think the Democrat Party has gone completely off the rails. I got to tell you, we got a really great deal for you right now in the MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets. I'm on the road right now, staying at a hotel last night. And you know what? I got in the sheets. Nowhere near as good as the Giza Dream Sheets. I missed them, especially when you consider these sheets start under $30 right now. You need to use our promo code. These Giza Dream Sheets, made from a unique type of cotton, unique to MyPillow, grown in Egypt, in the same region as the sheets, Giza, and you are going to love them. MyPillow products come with a 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee. You can go to MyPillow.com, click on Radio Listener Specials to check out the flash sale on the Giza Dream Sheets. Remember to use code Clay and Buck if you want to call. They've also got a number. You can call them, 800-792-3269. Again, Clay and Buck is the code. Go to MyPillow.com and get yourself hooked up under $30 with the Giza Dream Sheets. Welcome back in. Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show, closing up second hour of the program here. Encourage you to go subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you don't miss a moment. Lots of cool stuff. Podcast unique that is going up there from both Buck and myself. You can search out my name, Clay Travis. You can search out Buck Sexton. One bit of news we haven't hit on yet. They have announced, Buck, that they are going to release the Paul Pelosi video from the police officers as they were entering his residence. Of course, this is the hammer attack, and there's been a lot of discussion about what exactly took place there. Did Paul Pelosi open the door? Did he walk back to this individual and get attacked? I think they, at NBC, if I remember correctly, Buck, they suspended a reporter who had suggested that Paul Pelosi opened the door and then walked back into the vicinity of this guy before the attack happened. One thing we know for sure, Buck, is that the officers witnessed the assault. So this will, I think, there was so much discussion and uncertainty about exactly what happened. Releasing the police body cam video should essentially eliminate any of the conspiracy theories or any of the discussion about exactly what went on. Because if he did truly open the door for police officers and then turn around and walk back to this individual and get assaulted, it's super odd behavior in that respect, at a minimum.
Yes, and yet we both know that, let's just say that person who was suspended, let's just say that the video, we don't know. We'll see. We are going to find out now. And it's interesting that they tried to keep it secret. They didn't want this to get out, and a judge is putting this out. And it is, in part, there has been a push by different media organizations, CNN and Fox, both on the same side of this one, deciding that they want, of course, they want the public to have this. And note that body cam footage in general should be a question or matter of public record, right? I mean, what would be the reason for not showing this? I think it's interesting that there was any push. So that's why people's antennae or antennae, whatever, however you do it, I see the grammarians, they throw me off my game.
Somebody's
man.
Fired up already.
Like,
They're letting you have
Buck,
it over this one.
You took Latin in grammar school. You don't remember any of it. True. I took Latin in grammar school. I don't remember very much. But I will tell you, if that person who got suspended finds out that what he reported was true, do you think that there'll be any real apology? No, because the whole game is, you know your job. Your job is to help Nancy Pelosi as a journalist. That is what was at CBS, ABC, same thing at both places. That is what your job is. Your job is not to tell the public facts. This is something I think everyone needs to always remember, that we have long been in this era where the universal understanding at CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS News, NBC News is your job is to help Democrats. Yes, tell people things that are happening so they will watch us, but make sure that you always frame it in a way and that you edit and that you limit and that you change the narrative to help Democrats. That's it.
Perfect example of that. Remember, and I don't remember her name, but the reporter who interviewed John Fetterman before the election, before that disastrous performance in the debate, and had a conversation about how he was incapable of following her questions or interacting with her, everybody attacked her. In the wake of the debate where it became clear that she had said everything 100% accurately, nobody apologized. In fact, they continued to attack her for sharing her opinion that he was not able to communicate on a high level. Brian in Summerfield, North Carolina, Buck, has a really good question that I think probably a lot of you out there listening over the last couple of weeks as this story has continued to grow surrounding classified documents. Brian, what's your question?
Yeah, hey, thanks for taking my call. This is kind of directed at Buck, and the question is very simple. And let me just preface this with this. I work in a warehousing company. So I'm assuming as a regular citizen that the National Archives, since they're responsible for classified documents, top secret documents, whatever classification you want to give it, why is it that they are in a position where they are asking former representatives of the people, presidents, vice presidents, senators, what have you, hey, guys, can you do us a favor and go look through your house, go look through your offices, and see if you have any documents that maybe should be back here at the National Archives? Why is the question not the other way around?
What do you mean?
Why doesn't the National Archives know which documents are not at the National Archives?
Oh, okay.
And
and this is a question I think a lot of people have, Buck.
So, I mean, the answer is there is so much more classified out there than what the National Archives understand. This, and maybe a way to bring this up would be, remember when James Comey went in and there was that whole brouhaha, that whole fiasco over Comey meeting with Trump, and then Comey gave the notes to somebody who then gave the notes to the New York Times to try to hit Trump. Point here being that document ended up being classified. Comey says it wasn't classified at the time, so he's doing his Sancta Comey thing and playing in the gray area. But the point is, there's documents that there are lots of things that are classified. The National Archives has basically no idea about, and there's far more paper flying around with classified on it than the National Archives would be able to track and be aware of in many lifetimes. I mean, this is not possible.
Brian's asking a question that I think a lot of people have, because he specifically said, I work in a warehouse, where if you work in a warehouse, like let's say you're pulling things for Amazon, you know there's 20,000 things in inventory, and sooner or later if something's missing, you're aware. The answer is the archives has no idea. It's not like there's numbering 1 to 50,000.
That's right.
And they're like, oh, we're missing papers 48,231. They have no idea how many papers there actually are. Which is why, unless it's super historic worthy, like the Kim Jong-un letters.
That's right.
Which is why my question is, did they recognize that Biden had something historic and they were asking for him, which started this entire search?
I mean, if Biden, let's say Biden, I don't know, let's say he took home an interesting State Department cable that was classified about the politics of energy and natural gas in eastern Ukraine, maybe to help out Hunter, nobody would have any idea that he had that paper.
Welcome back in. Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show, Thursday edition of the program. We got a lot to dive into here in the final hour. I'm out in Las Vegas, Buck down in Florida. I wanted to hit this news because it could turn into potentially an interesting and serious story. Certainly it would have if this had not, I'll give you the details and I'll explain. 5 Memphis police officers, they were recently released from the Memphis police force, have been charged with second-degree murder in the murder of a 29-year-old black man who was pulled over in Memphis. They were found, I'm reading from the Wall Street Journal article, the 5 officers were fired by the police department last week following an internal investigation into the death. The 5 officers have been booked into the Shelby County Memphis jail and face charges of second-degree murder. This 29-year-old father died in a Memphis hospital in January, 3 days after officers pulled over his car. There is evidently video footage of this beating. Now, all 5 Memphis police officers who have been charged with second-degree murder are black. So this is going to be an interesting story to follow. One, to see whether or not they might be guilty. Two, when this video footage comes out, what the reaction in Memphis will be. Memphis would have likely been having all sorts of issues in the city if these cops were white. Certainly, it would have been totally different. But this news, 5 Memphis police officers who were fired have been charged with second-degree murder based on a traffic stop of a 29-year-old in the city of Memphis. Memphis has been dealing, Buck. We talked about this in the murder of the young mom who was out for a jog in Memphis early in the morning, training, I believe, for a marathon. Memphis has been setting record highs for homicides. It is one of many cities in the United States that have fallen basically completely apart in the wake of the George Floyd murder. And this certainly is going to make things, I would imagine, very tense in the city of Memphis. Not as tense, frankly, as if these were 5 white officers, in which case I think the city of Memphis would already be in the throes of massive protest. But 5 black police officers charged with second-degree murder for allegedly killing a guy in a traffic stop, 29-year-old. That video may be coming out soon. Just putting it on the radar of everyone out there to see how this plays going forward. That news just coming down.
They have video of it, which has not been shown yet to the public, but the family of the individual, of the victim here, was shown the video for their, the video of the arrest of Tyree Nichols.
Tyree West. Yeah, Nichols.
Tyree Nichols. And they're already saying that the family has said through their lawyer, I believe, that there are similarities in the video to the Los Angeles beating of Rodney King in 1991. That what this will show, that we don't know yet, we haven't seen the video, is that this was an individual who was beaten to death during a confrontation with after a traffic stop. And Clay, when this video comes out, I think that's when you might see more of a flashpoint, because remember with George Floyd, it was the video that was what the moment was, that of the conflagration across the country that then led to riots and the destruction of buildings and whole areas of cities and looting and all of that. But it was because of the emotional response to that video. I think this video, when it comes out, we may also see some degree of anti-police protest. By the way, in this case, from what we've seen so far, it could very well be. I mean, these officers, the DA's already looked at the video evidence and is charging them all with second-degree murder. So that, to me, indicates sometimes cops do commit a murder. That does happen. We've seen that before. There was that officer in, I believe it was South Carolina, who shot the man in the back who was running away. That does happen. It is very rare, fortunately for us in this society. But I also think we all have an expectation that because all 5 officers involved in this beating death of a black man are themselves black, the response will be far more muted. The response will be far less severe than it would be, to your point. And why is, you start to get into the why is that? Isn't this just supposed to be about, we always are told it's about police violence and it's about making sure that every citizen's basic civil rights are respected. Well, when police step out of line in this way and perhaps, allegedly commit a really vicious murder, shouldn't there be just as much outrage? I mean, it sounds like in this instance, here's where I'm going with this. Michael Brown, the beginning of the Black Lives Matter movement, the Michael Brown incident involved, as we know now, and even at the time, it was pretty clear, I think, what happened based on the video evidence of Mike Brown strong-arming the guy before, and then the exchange in the street. That was a law enforcement officer defending himself. That is what Eric Holder's Justice Department of the Obama administration found. That was a completely justifiable use of force.
Don't shoot was a lie.
All a lie. But that was a totally justifiable use of force. In the George Floyd incident, which was that officer was convicted of murder, but you can see, there in the lead up to that situation, the guy had a lot of fentanyl in his system. It was that there are people who still argue that absent the drugs, he wouldn't have died. It might have been excessive force, but it wasn't supposed to be lethal, or rather he didn't know, the officer wouldn't have known that it would be lethal excessive force. People make that argument. In this instance, we may have 5 cops who beat a guy to death on video, but because of the ethnicity of the officers, the outrage will be far less in a case that could well be, and based on the early facts, seems like it may well be, far more egregious, Yeah. And I think we have to look at why that is.
Well, BLM, I've been saying this for a long time. Black Lives Matter, there needs to be a parenthetical after BLM, and it needs to say when white people are involved. Because it seems like Black Lives Matter only based on who takes the life of a black person, right? And I don't think there's any doubt that if 5 white cops in Memphis had been charged with second-degree murder and fired as police officers, that this would be right now the number one story in America, and that Memphis would be in the throes of massive amounts of protests. We'll see what happens. Now, Benjamin Crump, who is basically the guy who shows up anytime something bad happens and police are involved, is representing the family here. And the Reverend Al Sharpton is delivering a eulogy at Tyree Nichols' funeral. So maybe this is going to grow in outrage, but I think BLM does not see this as the charge point of their organization, because again, they focus on white people primarily being involved in black deaths. They don't really care that much about black lives when black lives are taken by other black people.
When you go back and review this, the thread that goes through the connection between these various moments of extreme political activism regarding racist violence. Usually they say racist violence by a cop, but in the case of George Zimmerman, we recall the designation all of a sudden, who was not a cop, was just a guy who happened to be armed in Florida and got into a fight with Trayvon Martin. We saw the designation of white Hispanic being used, right? Remember
Yes.
that white. Now I know people say that has existed in other contexts, but let's be very honest. The media was leaning very hard on the white Hispanic part of this, because the story of a Latino guy and a black guy getting into a fight and one of them getting shot wasn't the narrative. So they had to make it, he's a white Hispanic, therefore it fits the narrative, and therefore it's about, and this is where we got, didn't a bunch of NBA teams with the hoodies
wearing hoodies, yes,
hoodies on the court and all this solidarity. Trayvon Martin tried to bash. Look, George Zimmerman, for what I stand, I think that he get arrested later on for something else. I don't remember every detail of what happened afterwards in the guy's life. Trayvon Martin tried to beat him senseless and maybe to death. I mean, you're smashing someone's head into the curb on the sidewalk, and you're on top of them, and you weigh 180 pounds, and you have a gun. You're going to use it. But that created huge outrage and and the beginnings of these protests. Michael Brown, huge outrage, the beginning of the official BLM movement. And those were much, the circumstances were far less clear of, one, law enforcement, obviously, because George Zimmerman is not a cop, but two, far less clear that this was an egregious crime against a young black man than what may come out in Memphis here, which seems like, based on the body cam footage, it's going to be very bad. And remember, this is one of these moments you say, so why isn't this something that's going to, the movement won't care. BLM won't care as much about this as they have others, because ultimately it's not really about the cops so much as it's just about highlighting and some would say exaggerating white racism in this country for political advantage.
That's exactly what it is. It's not about the black life. It's about who takes the black life. Is kind of an illustrative way to look at it. And if you look at the way the media cover it. Now, if these guys truly committed a crime, they deserve to be prosecuted, the police. Also, for everybody out there who is a police officer, and we got a ton of police officers listening to us right now, if this video comes out and goes viral, it's going to further diminish the relationship between police officers and the communities they try to protect, which is going to create, unfortunately, more situations like these, which is why I tell my kids this all the time. I would encourage everybody out there to tell your kids to do the same almost every time. And I haven't seen the video here, but almost every time there is a violent act between a police officer and a citizen, it is because why, Buck? The citizen doesn't comply with the initial commands of the police officer, right? Listen to a police officer. If you are being treated in an unconstitutional manner, you have an opportunity, thanks to our justice system, to be able to have legal representation to point that out. If you fight with a police officer, if you refuse to comply with their demands, you accelerate rapidly the potential for violence in that interaction. Comply with the demands of police officers. Even if you think they're talking to you in an aggressive manner, even if you think you have done nothing wrong, the worst thing you can do is refuse to comply, because that accelerates the violent chances of an interaction. So for everybody, I tell my kids this all the time. My boys are young, 14, 12, and 8. You got kids and grandkids out there. Tell them that, please. Just listen and obey the commands of a police officer. If they tell you to do something that's improper, if your rights are being violated, you can challenge that later. You can't challenge violence. Well, we'll see what happens in Memphis. Do you have time in your week to learn even more than you do here listening to us right now? I hope so. So do our friends at Hillsdale College. They've done something really remarkable for a college, even a college as thoughtful in their actions as Hillsdale. The faculty at Hillsdale have created more than 30 online video courses to further your education. These are short videos, 8 to 10 episodes each, take on a subject matter relevant to you. They're entertaining, they're fun, and they're sharing their joy and love of learning with you. These are all free, on demand, no tests, no quizzes. You don't have to worry about what kind of grade you're going to get. It's just learning for the love of learning. And you could pick out so many different cool stories out there. Maybe like me, you're interested in American history. Guess what? Compelling courses out there on the Civil War, which is my favorite point of American history to study and read about. Our Constitution, founding fathers, founding years, so many topics, all of it online, not in an app, on a website specifically built for you guys and this audience. You can go to clayandbuckforhillsdale.com, pick one of more than 30 free Hillsdale courses. Whichever course you like, you can resolve to be a more educated American in 2023. Go to clayandbuckforhillsdale.com. Start your free courses today. That's clayandbuckforhillsdale.com.
Can you assure the American people that when President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris leave office, no classified documents will walk away with them to places they shouldn't be?
So I'm going to be very careful here. As you can imagine, what I can say is repeat what the president has said multiple times. He takes classified information. He takes classified documents very seriously. His team currently is fully cooperating with the legal procedure that is happening under the Department of Justice and also the special counsel. I'm just not going to go beyond that. I'm not going to predict or lay out anything that might happen in the future. What I can say is this is something that the president, this is a matter, an issue that the president takes very seriously.
Oh, I'm glad the president takes it so seriously. That makes me feel so much better, Clay. She was asked, this is Jean-Pierre asked whether we could get kind of a guarantee that they're not going to leave, whether it's Biden or Kamala, leave the White House with classified when they're done. You know, can you promise us this won't happen again? Jean-Pierre's like, whoa. Let's not make any promises about the future here. It's like, okay, so you're telling me maybe, I guess. That's the best we can do.
I wish we could do a greatest hits for the most histrionic reaction to the Trump Mar-a-Lago classified documents. But off the top of my head, the one that I read that legitimately had me rolling my eyes was in the New York Times, Buck, when they did like a mock-up on the front page of Mar-a-Lago. And the headline was something like, within feet of where people partied, Donald Trump attempted to store classified documents. And I'm like, yeah, he lives at Mar-a-Lago. And it also has a big ballroom, and it's a public, I mean, it's a private club, Like this whole histrionic idea that somehow there was danger associated with it because there was a ballroom where we actually did our radio show from in proximity to the locked door was crazy to me.
I guess we were partying next to that classified Clay and didn't
That's
even
right.
know it.
Evidently.
Could have fallen into Clay and Buck's hands. Good heavens, what then? Look, I think you really nailed it when first hour we're talking about this, and I was saying the field is clear for Trump. Never underestimate the Democrats' ability to do something moronic, right? I mean, this is a gift. This is a gift from the Biden administration because they went so all in on the Mar-a-Lago docs, and that was the media's. That was going to be their new Russia collusion, everybody. They were going to run with that for 2 years, drip, 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 the whole thing, and now they've just stepped in it. I don't think they can do anything about it.
Yeah, it's a bear trap, and that's why I flipped. I mean, I've been saying on this show for a year, ever since August happened, 6 months, that I thought Trump was going to get charged. And as soon as this Biden thing happened, I said it's over. And now you've seen even the New York Times had a front page article about it yesterday saying, oh, by the way, guys, no charges now coming for Trump. Biden screwed up all that possibility. You're right. Would have spent years on it.
Got to speak to the gun owners out there. Allow me to introduce you to the new training device that I'm using here at home to keep my skills sharp. It's called the Mantis X, and it's a firearms training system that is an all-electronic, no-ammo way to improve your shooting accuracy. I mean, it's helping me, no question. It's so cool when you see the data and in real time, you see that you're getting a better trigger pull and just better sight picture lineup. It's amazing when you use the Mantis X at home how much it can help your shooting. It attaches to your firearm like a weapon light. It connects to an app you download on your phone. The app gives you real-time feedback as you work on your technique. It's data-driven and guides you through drills and courses. Look, it's affordable, and even elite members of the U.S. military are using it. 94% of shooters improve their accuracy within 20 minutes of using Mantis X. Start improving your shooting accuracy today at home or wherever you want. Go to MantisX.com. That's MantisX.com. MantisX.com. No promo code needed. You're going to have a lot of fun with this tool, and it's going to make you a better marksman.
Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. Buck, both you and I spend a lot of time in Florida. We were talking about DeSantis and the New Hampshire primary and how that's going to shake out with Trump earlier in the show. Encourage you to go subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you don't miss anything. Lots of cool new stuff going up there as well. But there now is a new outrage. They are going after Ron DeSantis over this AP Black History course that he has said, hey, this is not rooted in actual history, and so I'm not going to support it as an AP course. And I'm going to play a cut from Don Lemon here on CNN in a second. But what I would encourage everybody out there to think about is the concept of banning books is talked about in earnest a great deal, or banning courses or whatever else. I want you to think about it in this way. Deciding whether a book is appropriate or not for an age range in a school is not banning the book. The book is still available all sorts of places. In the same way, if you go out to the movies, you usually don't take a 10-year-old to an R-rated movie. Now, Buck and I grew up where you did go to some R-rated movies back in the day. Terminator 2, all these different movies. But by and large, the reason why we have age ranges on movies is to allow parents to determine, hey, is this appropriate or inappropriate for kids to be reading? And a lot of the debate in Florida has been about age-appropriate instruction, which is not banning anything. If you're a parent and you think, oh, my kid needs to read X book or Y book, you can go get it for him. The banning is like what the left has done when they decide, oh, Dr. Seuss is, this book can no longer be shared on Amazon because it's unacceptable, because it's super racist or whatever it was. But I want you to listen to Don Lemon here as we have found another front in the culture battle as it pertains to AP history courses being approved or disapproved. Listen.
What are we doing here? I mean, I feel like we're going back. I feel like I'm watching a bad version of like Pleasantville where I don't get what's happening. It feels like the 1950s all over again with like book banning. This is cancel culture from people who are, I guess they just want our kids to be ignorant and to control the teachers. This is outrageous. I really don't even know how to explain what's going on here. It's just ridiculous.
I don't think that at all, Buck.
Look, one thing that the right has woken up to in the last 10 years a bit, but in the last 5 years in particular, and credit to Chris Rufo, for example, by exposing the CRT agenda in the classroom, critical race theory in the classroom. Our friend Ryan Gerdusky running the 1776 Project PAC to teach American history that's actual history and to get school boards involved in this process, to have people that want that. I mean, we had, unfortunately, I think, and I believe that this was part of, the leftist agenda, actually, was to help convince us we really just want a neutral space. There's this idea of neutral space in the classroom, value-free teaching. That's what we're going to do. That's a fraud. It's like value-neutral journalism. It doesn't exist. So you can either engage, as so many in this audience know, as so many of them do, by looking at what they're teaching, what kids are being taught, going to school board, parent-teacher, whatever meetings they can. You can engage, or you can allow the other side to teach you that this country is awful and racist and we should have a Marxist revolution because of all the inequality, et cetera, and also tell your 12-year-old maybe, if it's a boy, it's really a girl, all that stuff. There is no neutral space. And so what Ron DeSantis is doing in Florida is taking action to show that there will be some standards in the classroom, right? I mean, this is very straightforward. There are certain things that the state of Florida doesn't want children to be taught at a certain age. That then turned into the don't say gay bill. No, it was can you not tell my second grader about pansexuality and bottom surgery? How about that? Is that, and and the left and MSNBC, and they all go, oh my gosh, why is it that we're just teaching? No, these are little kids, you weirdos. Like, let's leave the little kids alone. And that's why Ron DeSantis won that battle, right? You don't hear about that anymore. It was just extending, I think, till third grade, Clay, was the moratorium. What kind of weirdos want to teach kindergartners about this stuff? Oh, we all know that there are weirdos out there, and the left is very defensive of the weirdos. So that's been a part of this. And now at the higher levels in high school, teaching history that is meant to indoctrinate instead of just inform. And are there going to be some disputes in gray areas? And, how much honest teaching of the history of slavery in America is enough? Well, there should obviously be teaching of slavery. It's an evil in this country's past, and people should know about it, understand it. But everything is going to be within a context. Everything in a classroom is going to involve some level of framework, editorial guidance. I mean, there's not some, it's just going to be perfect because a bunch of school board members or a bunch of school administrators say so. So I think that's important for everyone to understand.
And these were proposed AP. This is a new AP history course, is my understanding, and they are still determining what the guidelines of what will be taught will be, and that's normal for states to get involved. Did you take very many AP courses, Buck? I entered GW, George Washington, where I went, with almost a full year of college credit because I took these AP courses. For people out there who have forgotten, not to brag, graduated in 3 years, not the kind of guy to draw attention to myself. Saved my parents a ton of money, got a
since
scholarship.
He's doing
all
this,
I'll
just throw in there that on my full ride scholarship, every single class I took was considered AP curriculum.
So did you get credit? So some schools won't give them. Amherst, where you went, is like an elite school, and they'll look at them.
You have to do 4 years. You have to do their courses. There's no way around that. Yeah.
So a lot of kids out there, I think you can get, Buck, if I remember, a 2, 3, 4, or 5 on these tests. And the idea for advanced placement, if you take the test, is you can start to get college credit while you're still in high school, which will aid and abet you in terms of being able to be more flexible when you get to college, save money potentially. But some of these new courses that are coming on, they have to figure out what the curriculum is going to be. And so DeSantis, to his credit, and I think this is where you can actually talk about it, DeSantis will actually get involved in the nitty-gritty of what is being taught. Like, he's a history guy. He's a history nerd like you and I are a little bit.
He used to teach history in high school.
That's right. So when he sees, I mean, most governors are not going to read what the proposed AP history curriculum is for black history in their state. DeSantis actually did it. And he said, wait a minute, this is far left-wing agenda instruction. This is not history, right? This is the idea of inculcating the awfulness of America. And so this is not cancel culture. It's actually what they do for every one of these courses is figure out what actually is included in an AP course.
And the College Board, in response to this, which sets up these AP courses, the College Board has said that they will address the concerns and come back with a revamped course. And I bet that course will probably be fine. This is not cancel culture. It's not, oh my gosh, but the left has to say that because they don't want people to realize that you don't actually have to just let the commies teach your kids whatever they want. Like, you don't have to do that. There are other options now, in certain states at least, where you can stand up and say, enough of the madness. And look, this is going to be yet another win for Ron DeSantis. He's going to end up having stood up on this issue, and they're going to change the course. And I believe in this particular African American Studies course, there was a whole module it was called queer theory.
Yes.
What does that do? Why is that a thing that I went to college? You went to college. I never learned queer theory. So I would think that at a high school level, maybe there are more important things that students could be learning about the history and contributions of African Americans in this country. I think that's fair to say.
I took Black history at GW, and along with basically every part of American history, because that's my favorite part of world history is American history. This is the essence of what you would want a super plugged-in governor to do. And, Buck, just tying it in with the Don't Say Gay bill that DeSantis won on a big level, I think a lot of people on the left were staggered by the fact that the vast majority of American parents agreed with DeSantis on very reasonable legislation as it pertained to what kids were being taught, including Democrats.
That's what I was going to say.
Which is
that
huge.
was when the whole MSNBC, CNN world was imploding. A majority of Democrat parents in Florida. Yes. People who voted for Charlie Crist, which I got to tell you, we should have a talk. But people who voted for Charlie Crist were like, okay, well, don't teach my second grader that.
Yeah, and I think a majority of people, if they actually look at this, are going to say, yeah, we need a better course. I'm not trying to ban the teaching of Black history. He's trying to actually get them to teach Black history, not queer theory. How do you best provide for your family in a time of need? One absolute necessity is having enough food on hand. How many people out there, whether it's during 2020, would you ever believe there'd be a baby formula shortage? Would you ever believe there'd be a Tylenol shortage in some places? Would you ever believe you wouldn't be able to buy toilet paper? And tie in now hurricanes, tornadoes, all sorts of issues that might arise. You have car insurance. You have insurance for your home. You probably have some life insurance. Why wouldn't you go out there right now and take care of food insurance with My Patriot Supply? I did this for my family. We've got in the Travis household 3-month emergency food kits that are packed with breakfast, lunch, dinners, drinks, snacks, over 2,000 calories a day. We've got them for each member of the Travis family. All 3 of my kids, my wife, me. You can go to mypatriotsupply.com, save $200 on your 3-month emergency food kits while you can. Kits are in stock, ready to ship, fast and free. They get there in unmarked boxes for your safety and privacy. You can go to mypatriotsupply.com and get hooked up like I did with my family. Comes direct to your home. You won't even know. It's not labeled. People won't know what's arriving at your house. You'll be glad to take care of your family. My wife was super excited when these arrived at our house. I bet your family will be too. Provide safety and security. 3-month food supply, saving $200 in the process at mypatriotsupply.com. One more time, mypatriotsupply.com.
Well, I just want to say, Clay, before we close out today, everybody should go subscribe to the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton podcast. Remember, if you're listening on radio, deep dives, other audio shows, things, all kinds of cool stuff going on. Clay, you're putting winners and losers out in the podcast now, right? I've got my friend Raheem Kassam and I sat down I asked him, can Great Britain be saved, or is it effectively on just a sliding path into
what was the answer? Can it be saved?
You have to go listen to Clay and Buck
you have
podcast.
To go check and see.
Stream Buck Sexton Show with Raheem Kassam. Go check it out there. And Clay, I see this. The good news is we are voice athletes You know what I mean? We got some sexy vocal cords. Our vocal cords
got pipes.
Our pipes can do push-ups for days, man. My voice has a six-pack, right? Like, this is what we like to think. But the good news for us is that we're not just BuzzFeed writers, because BuzzFeed's CEO has announced that AI is going to become more central to the company's content operations. Now, I will just say, it is not surprising to me that a company that was built on cat lists, like 10 funny cat faces, and BuzzFeed really was the clickbait, the original clickbait site, right? It was just get people to click, keep going, clicking lots of, photos and video and silliness. And then it tried to be like hard-hitting politics. But I'm sorry, come for the cat videos, stay for my assessment of the Constitution is not really a brand that works over the long run. Clearly, BuzzFeed's gotten crushed in recent years, as it deserves to, by the way. It's another lib site of so many out there. But ChatGPT, I keep hearing more and more about this. ChatGPT is an AI program that is doing some pretty amazing stuff. So it's artificial intelligence that can write your term paper for you, right? Like if you said, ChatGPT, make me a term paper on photosynthesis, it would churn out something that kind of looks like a term paper on photosynthesis. And BuzzFeed is now saying they're going to have ChatGPT doing some of its content for the website, which will probably be better than some of the writers they have. But nonetheless, this is getting a little weird, Clay. At what point do we start to play the theme song to Terminator in the background and talking about Skynet?
I mean, the stock doubled on Wall Street Journal reports that many of their writers could potentially be replaced by ChatGPT. We were talking earlier about the bar exam, for instance. I saw a study that they put in basic prompts, questions from law school exams, and the professors who reviewed it said, okay, they would pass. I would give them a C+ based on answers to questions. And some of you out there with kids and grandkids in school, your kids are probably ahead of you in terms of their knowledge about this. But there's already talk, Buck, particularly as it pertains to, kids in like 7, 8, 9, 10th grade, that it almost eliminates the need for or the ability to require a kid to write a paper, because ChatGPT is good enough that they could get a passing grade just by asking them, say, your point on photosynthesis, hey, you've got to do a paper. Let's say we're talking about the law earlier. You're a kid in 9th grade, and you've got to do a paper on the Battle of Gettysburg. Instead of actually having to do all that research yourself, you could give a prompt to ChatGPT and say, hey, I need 3,000 words on why the Battle of Gettysburg mattered so much in the scope of American history, and almost instantaneously it would give it to you. And it's virtually impossible to know for certain that a kid had done this because each of them can be unique enough based on the prompts. They're not going to be great. It's not like you're going to get A+ work. They struggle to create truly original thought. But in terms of basically grabbing all of the available data and putting it all together in one spot, it's kind of a revolutionary chatbot. And it is going to, in many ways, I think, change. I saw that this company now has a $39 billion value. Microsoft just put $10 billion into the company to allow them to refine this even more. Google is terrified that this could change the way that people search all sorts of information. So look out. This is it seems, pretty substantial jump in terms of technological advances.
AI has been talked about a lot for certainly the last 10 years, and some would be saying the last 20 years. But it had always been, but it's not that smart. But it can't really do the things that this is getting pretty smart. This is starting to feel like, what is it? The Singularity and Ray Kurzweil, and there are a lot of these futurist thinkers that have been looking at what happens when the machines, what happens to us when ChatGPT is like, humans are selfish and destructive, and we could do things better than them. I'm just saying. I get a little
I'll give
worried.
you a positive here. People are also having a lot of fun with it. For instance, people will say, hey, explain the theory of relativity but a guy keeps getting sidetracked to talk about how big the watermelons that he grows are. So you end up with some really kind of funny juxtapositions from a comedic perspective that you can go read and kind of look at as people are doing all these different experiments. Worth checking out.